So anyway, she comes on and she basically dismisses all this methane conspiracy. And it's like all these videos are being shown as like these bad conspiracy videos that are scaring this poor girl. And I thought it was freaking hysterical. I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know what your response was. You've been rather vocal.
Yeah, I think my response was more like, oh, this is very recognizable as political propaganda, you know, because
right.
I can recognize the difference between scientific communication on one side and propaganda on the other. And then the typical thing is that you use like this almost crying girl who plays sort of the confused public
It was so
figure.
funny. This girl was traumatized. It was like a religious conversion. Oh, I was so sad before when I believed in the methane conspiracy. My life was horrible, and I was obsessed, and everything was messed up.
And you can almost see her tear up as well, you know. It's almost tears in her eyes.
She's crying. She's having a breakdown. And then I reached out to Carolyn Ruppel from the U.S. Geologic Survey and got
my
her
savior.
Oh my God. I am so relieved. I don't have to worry about methane threat anymore.
Yeah, it's because the reason she doesn't have to worry is that the scientist Ruppel in the USGS, she's able to say that in order to melt ice, you need to add heat. And nobody knew that, you know, before. So obviously it can't melt. And also the ice caps are safe because you need to add heat. And we don't have heat in this global warming world. That's one thing we lack all over, right?
Oh, right. Well, don't add heat. Because the last time I checked, heat plus ice equals... God, I can't remember. What was it?
I forgot. It's so long since I was at college, I forgot. What's the thing that you get if you heat ice?
Water, that's it. So heat plus ice equals water. And I think that's kind of the way it works.
Is that the melting process? It's called melting?
Right.
Yeah, right.
So the reason that the methane hydrates are not going to melt is because it requires heat, and their melting activity draws the heat, and there's not enough heat to melt all of this methane. Although if we ever bothered to look at the permafrost, which is just a riot of holes and sunken earth and percolating bacteria, and God help us, I mean, it is almost hysterical. And I've chosen, if you want to, Torsten, we can. I've chosen that part of the video where they kind of highlight all and I can share my screen and show the audience, because I bet they'll get a big kick out of it. But I call this the Great Hydrate Wars.
Please give it a spin,
I was deep into that stuff. I was watching YouTube videos, and I started even getting into like conspiracy minded like places where I thought this was like being hidden from us. Like people were trying to hide the fact that these mechanisms existed, when really we're in store for much more catastrophe than like mainstream scientists are willing to let us know, because they don't want to cause public panic.
I can't say for sure we're in the safe zone or we're not. I can say for sure that we're headed towards a really dangerous place. There's a chance that some of these really big feedbacks, ecosystem feedbacks, will take the fate of the climate out of our hands.
So it was these YouTube videos on this methane bomb theory, right? That there was this mechanism where these methane hydrates will escape from like subsea permafrost or from shallow, the ESAS ice shelf, and create this runaway global warming effect. Now I know that all of these claims are overblown. Like, it's the methane bomb claims specifically. Like, obviously there's permafrost feedback, but in terms of like research that Carolyn Ruppel did.
I'm Carolyn Ruppel, and I work for the U.S. Geological Survey. I'm a marine geophysicist, and I lead the USGS Gas Hydrates project. People who may not be too aware of the thermodynamics of gas hydrates may believe that once you start triggering warming of those and breakdown of those deposits, you can't stop it. And in fact, the thermodynamics helps you a lot on this because of the nature of the reaction. It's an endothermic heat of reaction. This is a problem when we try to produce methane from hydrates. It keeps shutting itself down, right? So it's not a situation where we trigger breakdown and that breakdown is going to suddenly, like the whole deposit's going to release its methane all of a sudden. That is not a scientifically sound worry.
So I don't know if you were able to hear any of that while I was playing. If not, you can go in and check out that video. But that's basically congratulations, Torsten. We've made the big time. We are officially on the conspiracy list at this point. So
yeah, well,
good job.
So what I sort of started thinking about after blogging about this episode with this Yale propaganda video is, it's kind of like how much of the other climate communication we are seeing is also propaganda, because if it's made from, you know, bad will, you know, if the intention is not to inform people, but the intention is more like making them prone to do this or that desired action, you know, like voting for the Democrats or whatever thing that they want us to do, then it could be considered to be propaganda. I'm thinking, first and foremost, I'm thinking about like the IPCC itself and their reports. Mm-hmm. They talk about having 12 more years to get our carbon emissions down, and I think both you and I know that the important tipping points are in our past. We are already past them, and it doesn't really matter how many 40% we reduce our emissions by in 2030 or in 2040 or 2070s. Some people are talking about reducing in the 2070s, and that's kind of sweet. But I'm thinking that if you have like this big United Nations body, which is using years and years and years, come out with a report, like they are 7 years apart of the biggest reports they make.
When climate is changing so quickly now. I mean, it's changing, like you track this thing on a daily basis, you know, and you see the changes.
As long as there is data to track. But, you know, you have all the best scientists that the UN can draw from, and they have like 7 years to put out a report, and they still go, you know, they can't really seem to remember that Greenland has a lot of ice and Antarctica has a lot of ice. They tend to forget that, and even when they're talking about warming to the year 2100, they forget about permafrost and methane. I mean, like,
it is total cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, or propaganda, I mean, because there is an ill will or a bad will behind it. You know, if you put out those reports, you are not purveying scientific facts. You are actually spreading propaganda.
It's irresponsible and it's unethical as well. Especially to parade as, you know, a beacon of truth or whatever their reputation is supposed to be, and then you can see their data is like 7 years behind, and the lack of, they're like so caught up in the details that they've like lost the passion and the urgency, and so you just get this. I mean, have you ever tried to read those IPCC reports? I mean, they're like very hard to read.
Yeah, I mostly read them by searching for keywords and stuff. You know?